Welcome to the Sovereign CEO podcast. I am Caleb Jones. This is where we talk about how to set up location-independent income, move to a less bad country, or at least set up an international backup plan, like I have here in Paraguay, where I'm recording this video/podcast. And do all these things for very little money, because it doesn't cost that much money. I'm going to discuss a question I get, one of the most common questions I get regarding Western collapse. But before I get to that question, I want to give you an analogy. I don't often use these, but sometimes they are apropos. You see the big words I know how to use? I didn't go to college, but I have read a dictionary, so I know how to say the word apropos. So the odds are, I don't know what the exact number is. I believe the number is 96% that at some point in your life, you will be involved in a car accident. Therefore, you should do something every time you get into a car, which is called putting on your seatbelt, okay? So let's say you're new to the concept of putting on your seatbelt, and you get in the car, and you get in the car with a friend of yours or your mom or whatever if you're younger. Let's say it's your mom. Let's use that as an example. You get in the car with your mom, and she puts on her seatbelt, and she says, "You put your seatbelt on." And you say, "Why? Why should I put my seatbelt on?" And she'll say, well, 96% chance you will be involved in a car accident. And if you're not wearing your seatbelt, your head is gonna go face first into that fucking windshield, and you're gonna fly 20 feet and slam into a tree like in the Friday the 13th movies. And you probably don't want that to happen, so you put on your fucking seatbelt, you dumbass. And then you ask her this question. You say, okay, now let's say you believe her, okay? Assume that for a second that you trust her statistics and you trust her models, and you say, all right, yes, okay, that makes sense. 96% chance I'll get in a car accident and I'll be hurt. Okay, so that is valid to put on a seatbelt. You're not arguing against putting on the seatbelt. You agree that might be a good idea. But you ask her this. You say, well, when am I gonna get in a car accident? When is that gonna happen? Like next year? Like 15 years from now? 10 years from now? When? And she kind of looks at you like, what do you mean when? I don't know. And you say, well, but I need to know when. See, if it's gonna happen in 12 years, fine, I'll leave my seatbelt off. If it's gonna happen in 6 months, oh shit, I better put on that seatbelt right now. You would be an insane person, right? That sounds insane. The example I just gave you sounds like you're dealing with a maniac. You would just put on your fucking seatbelt because you don't know it's going to occur, you just knew it's going to occur in your lifetime. It could occur tomorrow, it could occur in a year, it might not occur for 6 or 7 years. But you don't know, therefore you put the seatbelt on now. You don't wait 7 years and say, well, if someone who I trust tells me that I'm not gonna get in a car accident for like 8 more years, then great, I don't have to really worry about this seatbelt thing for another at least 5, 6, 7 years, right? Then I can start wearing a seatbelt. This goes back to the question, one of the most common questions I get, which is, when is the Western world gonna collapse, Caleb? Now, these are usually coming from people who agree with me that the Western world is going to collapse in our lifetimes, and it will. So these aren't people arguing with me saying, oh, I don't think it's going to collapse. These are people who generally agree, yeah, America will collapse, and or Canada, and or Western Europe, and or Eastern Europe, and or whatever, other places in the Western world, who knows? So yes, they agree, yes, but they'll say, well, when is it going to collapse? How much time do I have to get out of here? If I want to leave the country, how much time do I have? If I get these questions all the time. Well, if I live in Germany, how much time do I have? If I live in Canada, how much time do I have? If I live in the UK, if I live in the United States, if I live in New Zealand, how much time do I have? When will this country collapse? When will the Western world collapse? I submit to you that that is a completely useless question. It's a completely useless, even if I had the answer, which I don't, I'll cover that in a second. Even if I had the answer, completely useless question. You have to take action now. It doesn't matter when your country is going to collapse, even again if someone knew the exact answer. It's not relevant because we know this will occur in your lifetime. Now let me back up on that topic really quick, on whether or not the Western world will collapse. The Western world will collapse. It is mathematically impossible to stop the Western world from collapsing already. It's going to collapse, number one, okay? There is no one you can vote for, Trump supporters, Bernie Sanders supporters, Democrats, Republicans, Libertarians, whoever the fuck you are. There is no one you can vote for, there is no political party you can vote for who will prevent the collapse. It's going to happen, it cannot be stopped, and it's going to happen in our lifetimes, which is the second piece of this. It is not going to happen in 200 years. Oh no, we're way past that. It's going to happen in your lifetime, unless you are already very old. If you're already in your 70s, you might be okay. My parents are in their 80s, and we've had some discussions about this. They're fine. They're going to be gone, most likely. Now, maybe not, but most likely they'll probably be gone by the time the Western world really collapses and gets really bad. Possibly. Now, maybe not. Maybe not. My parents could live well into the 90s, and it could happen in the next 10 years. That could happen. But I'm just saying your odds are a little better if you're very old. If you are not very old, if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, I'm in my 50s, you will experience this collapse in your lifetime. So it will collapse, and it will collapse in your lifetime. The only thing, by the way, that will prevent Western collapse is something technological. And I've been on the record to say this many times. It is possible, I'm not going to bet my whole life on this, I'm not going to bet my whole future on this like some of you are, but it is possible that someone in the next few decades or next 10 years, I don't know what's going to collapse is going to happen, but before the collapse occurs, it is possible that someone invents something that is just an absolute world game changer and saves the Western world. You know, someone invents a little battery the size of a vitamin pill that costs $2 and will power your entire house for 1,000 years. Okay? Someone invents something like that, that is a game changer. Okay? Yes. Or someone invents, you know, the thing on Star Trek where they walk over to the little wall thing and they say, give me a cheeseburger and a coffee and French fries. And whoom, it just appears there out of thin air. Someone invents that, where they can print food out of thin air and it doesn't cost any money or cost very little. It costs 4 cents to print the cheeseburger, okay? If someone invents something like that in the next 10 years, good luck. Great, that could save the Western world. It could, that could happen, it's possible. Am I going to bet my life on that? No. Am I going to bet my entire future on someone maybe inventing something that may save the United States? No, I'm not. I'm going to take action and be covered and live a happy life if America collapses or if it doesn't collapse. Either way, I'm covered. I've done podcasts about that before. I'm covered either way instead of just one possibility. Instead of most of you who are covered only if one particular weird, unlikely thing occurs. Make sense? So if the collapse is going to occur, and if the collapse is going to occur in your lifetime, it doesn't matter when it happens. You have to start taking action now. What if the collapse occurs in 3 years? I don't think it will, but it could. Let me talk about that really quick. I'm not a hysterical Alex Jones type psychopath. Oh my God, the world's coming to an end and it'll be October of next year. I'm not like that. I've never been like that. I'm rational. But speaking rationally, with the economics the way they are, with the banking system the way it is, the Western world, with the war scenario going on right now, with the complete psychotic incompetents who are in charge of Canada, United States, and Europe right now, it is entirely possible that the Western world, or at least the United States, could collapse in the next 1, 2, 3 years. That could happen. I don't think it will. I think the odds are against it. But it's certainly above the 2% rule that could happen. So if it collapses in 3 years, and you say, it won't happen for another 10 years, and you do nothing, you're fucked. That's dumb. The point is you don't know when. You don't know when you're going to get in that car accident. Therefore, you put your seatbelt on every fucking time. You don't try to outguess fate. You don't know. Okay? So let me talk about that. I have said on my blogs many times before, this was well before Peter Zeihan was famous. I have said many times, go back and look, I've been saying this for 10 years or longer in my blogs. Anyone who gives you exact predictions with exact dates is either lying, psychotic, or trying to sell you something. Okay? And I'm going to say that again. If anyone says the Western world is going to collapse, or China is going to collapse, or Germany is going to collapse on this date, that person is either lying, insane, or trying to sell you something, or sell somebody something. Peter Zeihan has gone on the record. I love Peter Zeihan, okay? But guys like Peter Zeihan do this. Guys I like do this. Doug Casey has done this. I love Doug Casey. The problem with Doug Casey is he's made predictions with specific dates, and he was wrong. Can't do that. You will notice I do not do this. Guys like Peter Zeihan specifically has said China will collapse by 2030. Really? That's in 7 years. China's going to collapse in 7 years? Really? He gives you an exact date or an exact year for China's collapse. How the fuck does he know? He doesn't know. And he's going to be wrong, and he's going to look really stupid. You will notice that I don't do this. When I make predictions, I don't give exact dates. Because when people ask me, well, when is it going to collapse? What do I say? My standard answer, I don't know. I know it's going to happen in your lifetime, but I can't give you a date or a year or a time. Also, and I've talked about this in my blogs, if anyone can give you a precise date for a future event and be right, that person would already be a multi-billionaire by now. If I knew the exact date or even the year, not even the exact date, the year that the Western world was going to collapse, and I knew it, and it was good, and it was right, 100% guaranteed, I'd already be a billionaire. With that kind of foreknowledge, I'd be making so much money right now, I wouldn't be on this podcast or this YouTube video. I wouldn't need to. So anyone that makes predictions with a precise years or quarters or months or days, they should already be a multi-billionaire. If they're not, you've got to question what they're talking about, okay? So you can't pinpoint when the Western world is going to collapse. You can give wild guesses. I mean, I said in your lifetime, that's a range, right? But I don't know when, and no one knows when, and no one can. Just like no one knows when you're going to get into your next car accident, right? There's no one you can ask. There's no car expert you can ask to say when exactly, or at least give me the year when I will get my next car accident. Imagine some car expert named Peter Zeihan, who is a car expert, and he knows everything about cars more than anyone else in the world, and he says, oh, your next car accident will be in 2028. Wouldn't make any sense, would it? Right? Right. Okay. Therefore, it doesn't matter when you take preventative action. It doesn't matter when you get in the car accident. You put the seatbelt on now, and you keep putting it on every time you get into a car. So in terms of 5 flags, guess what you do? You take action now and keep taking action until you have developed your 5 flags plan, whatever that is. Maybe your 5 flags plan is you're going to stay in the collapsing Western world, but you're going to set up an international plan B, like here in Paraguay or some other country, Ecuador, Southeast Asia. You're going to get residency there. Okay, you're going to have some banking there, have some money there, know the groundwork, and that way you can fly there as soon as you can. And I have a whole video on this on my YouTube channel on where can you be in 72 hours. So as part of your backup plan, you know your feet can be on the ground in your secondary location, even during a war, even during a pandemic, which means you have legal residency there, within 72 hours. I can be in 4 different countries in terms of my residencies within 72 hours from Dubai if anything ever happens to Dubai. Not that I'm planning on it, but again, I'm rational. Maybe that's your plan. Maybe your plan is to move out of your collapsing Western country. Great, please do that. Maybe that's your plan. I don't know what your plan is, but whatever your plan is, you take action on it right now, today, and you keep taking action on it every day until it is done. Then you can relax. Then you don't got to worry about it. I don't really worry about Western collapse as compared to many of you. I don't give a shit. You know why? My 5 flags plan was done quite a while ago. Now, that's actually not true. There are 1 or 2 little aspects to my plan. Like, for example, I need multiple passports. I haven't got those yet. But that's the last piece of my plan, and that's frankly optional for me. It's not something I require, but it's something I want. My point is, I've already implemented 95% of my 5 flags plan, so now I don't care. If it bothers you, when is the Western world going to collapse? That tells me that you're not done, and you need to get to work. You don't wait. You don't say, well, maybe I have more time. Maybe, I live in whatever. I live in Spain, and Spain is economically lower than Germany, so I have more time now than if I lived in Germany, so I don't have to worry about this right now. What I'll do is this, that. No. You take action now. Let me give you the second reason. This is probably even the bigger reason. I have said this 10,000 times in my content, and this is a fact. 5 flags, foreign residencies, foreign bank accounts, foreign companies, getting money offshore, moving out of your collapsing Western country, all aspects of 5 flags gets harder every year. It gets harder every year, which means if you wait because you think the urgency isn't there, it's going to be harder and or much more expensive to do what you want to do, or maybe even impossible. There are countries right now that offer easy residencies, we talk about all of them, that in 3 or 4 or 5 years or even 1 or 2 years will not offer these residencies anymore. This has happened many, many, many times. There are countries that offer citizenships, either citizenship by investment or citizenships in other ways, that 2, 3, 4 years from now will not offer them at all. Or they'll offer them if you pay them $10 million or $5 million. Do you have $10 million? $5 million laying around? Probably not. So trying to convince yourself that there is no urgency just harms you, because every year Five Flags gets worse. Less countries are flexible about having foreigners in their lands every fucking year. Five Flags was so easy 10 years ago. It's night and day. If you compare Five Flags today and Five Flags 10 years ago, all the great countries you could go to very easily, it's nothing like it is today. It is far more difficult, far more touchy, far more complicated, and in many cases far more expensive today. 3-4 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, this is going to be very difficult, and I've made this prediction, and as usual, I don't give dates for my predictions because I don't know when, and there's no way to know that, but this prediction is going to be true. At some point soon, in the next few years, Five Flags, the way I discuss it here at Sovereign CEO, will not be possible unless you are a multi-millionaire, unless you are very wealthy. I don't mean you have $1 million, equity in your house so you can call yourself a millionaire. No. I mean you have millions and millions of dollars sitting around somewhere liquid that you could spend or hand to a country. Five Flags, the way we discuss it now, will only be for the wealthy in a few years. And again, I don't know how many years that is. 3 years, 5 years, 12 years. I don't know, but I do know Five Flags hits harder every year. So again, the question of, well, when will my country collapse? Well, when will the Western world collapse? It doesn't fucking matter. You need to take action on it now. I'm serious about this. And I say this to you, if you never purchase any book, course, event, service, or coaching program from me, I'm not trying to sell you on something. Yes, I'm here to sell you on my content, and I'm here to sell you on my books and courses and coaching programs. Of course, that's why I'm here. I'm running a business here. But what I'm telling you is irrelevant of that. You could never give me a single penny, and I'm still right about all this. You don't know when your country's going to collapse. It could collapse sooner than you think, and Five Flags gets worse and harder and more expensive, more complicated every year. Period. That is a fact. Has nothing to do with me selling anything if you think I'm saying this as a biased salesperson. I just gave you two facts. The Western world's going to collapse in your lifetime. We don't know when. Five Flags hits harder every year. Period. So it doesn't matter when your country is collapsing. Do you think in 2003, when I first started thinking about moving out of the United States, because I could see the writing on the wall, I could see that in 20 years, this would be a horrible country, and I was right. I said, well, when? When is it going to collapse? No, that wasn't an issue. I started working on it. Do you think in 2012, when I made the solid decision to move out of the country, and I had to stay in my current collapsing country because I had small children? Dumb excuse, but that was the excuse I used. In 2012, when I made the decision, do you think I said, well, when is it going to collapse? No, I got to work. I started traveling, doing research, taking notes, paying attorneys, doing all that groundwork. I started doing it then. Do you think in 2020, when I made the decision to leave the United States in 2021, instead of 2025, do you think I said, well, I mean, things are getting bad now, but maybe it won't collapse for another 10 years. So we got another 10 years. No. I told my wife in 2020, when I saw the lockdowns from the pandemic, and when I saw both the left-wingers and right-wingers go completely batshit insane during the Floyd riots, I turned to my wife and I said, we're out of here next year. I am leaving next year. Now, if you can't leave, great, we'll figure that out. And she moved a year later. But I said, we're out of here 2021. I am not going to wait for America to collapse. It's going to get worse and worse every year. I want out now. And by the way, that's the third thing. I'll leave you with this. I've used this analogy before. In blackjack, the way you make money playing blackjack, I've made thousands of dollars in profit playing blackjack. Here's the secret, if there is one, to making money with blackjack. When you're winning, you leave. You don't keep playing. When you're winning, you leave. So in terms of Five Flags, you get out when the country is still okay. You don't wait for the country to be horrible and terrible and awful with bands of people roaming the streets looking for food, or gigantic lines at the bank because they're out of cash and the ATMs are empty, or authoritarian woke politicians, controlling every aspect of your life. You don't wait for that shit and then figure out how to leave. By then you probably can't. Or by then you've already suffered the pain. Get out when the getting is good. Get out, go somewhere less bad now, not later. It doesn't matter when the Western world's going to collapse. You got to take action on this stuff now. Period. End of story. I hope this has helped. I will see you in a week in the next podcast. Have fun. Bye.